Hi, folks. A very warm welcome to season 5, episode 10 of the Lemons and Pineapples podcast with me, Emma O'Brien. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about perimenopause, hormones, and midlife rage. So, if you are over the age of 40 and you are a woman, you can probably relate to just what I've shared in the title of the podcast, and you can probably relate to navigating the difficulties of this period of midlife, navigating the physical and emotional challenges of being in menopause and the midlife changes that happen to us all, unfortunately. Now, this episode is inspired by a quote I saw on Instagram this morning from Alexi Panos. And here is what she said. Perimenopause is wild because you start out thinking you have a hormonal imbalance and wind up realizing you've been abandoning yourself to keep everyone else comfortable for about 40 years. This struck a bit of a chord with me this morning, realizing where I have been self-abandoning in my own life, where I have been over-functioning, where I have been carrying more than my fair share, has been something I've been sitting with over the past year or so, and it's been quite hard work sitting with that and realizing how much I have been over-functioning, how much I've been doing, and deciding to stop doing it. And this is the sort of conversation I end up having often with the clients that I coach. I coach quite a lot of women who are also in this midlife bracket and going through big changes and struggling with how they're feeling. And it is not helped by, I think, the very patriarchal view of women in midlife that you're over, like this phrase of being over the hill at 40 is a classic, isn't it? Cheers, great, thanks. The societal viewpoint that the older women get, the less attractive they are. I think that's quite a difficult one to sit with. Whilst we, as women in middle age, and I speak very much for myself here, are struggling with the fact that our bodies are changing and that it is not as easy to stay slim if that's what you're used to. It's a very difficult phase of life to be in, and I think we're also very used to the magazines we read, the things we see online. Perimenopause is one of those big buzzwords that's around at the moment. And we are used to hearing about it's your hormones, you're feeling ragey because your hormones, you're feeling unsettled and unhappy because of your hormones, you can't sleep because of your hormones, and everything is blamed on hormonal imbalance. And then the task we are given is to then find a way to balance those hormones. So whether that's doing it naturally through diet and doing more exercise, of course, these are all things that will help, or whether it's going on HRT. But I think what's not being shared in this dialogue is the fact that, yes, you've got big hormonal shifts happening, and yes, they do cause physical and emotional upheaval. Obviously, as we go on the journey to menopause, you're going to be ovulating erratically if you're even ovulating at all. Of course, when we are not ovulating, we don't have progesterone, which is the hormone that helps to keep our moods balanced. It helps us to sleep. So, of course, we've got sleep being affected, we've got moods being affected, we've got all sorts of things in our own systems being affected. And of course, having those hormonal fluctuations cause us, when we're not sleeping and we're not feeling great, to have a lower tolerance for things that we perhaps might ordinarily have let slide. You've got perhaps less energy to be able to cope with everything, and then you suddenly realize how much you have been coping with, how much you have been tolerating, that you just don't have the capacity to tolerate and cope with anymore. And I think that realization of, oh, I've actually been holding the whole ship together at home. I've been working really hard, and I've been coming home and doing the dishes, doing the laundry, managing the children, managing schedules, managing perhaps a husband's schedule, and managing everything. And it's when the cracks start to appear. So yes, our hormones are the thing that start to instigate the changes in midlife, but they are the thing that flag up where you've been over functioning, where you've been carrying too much. where you've been doing it all and you just don't have the capacity to anymore. And I think that's where women start to realize, oh, I've been living for everybody else. I've been doing everything to hold everything together, and I haven't been helped. And my needs have not been met. They've not been attended to. Perhaps they've not been listened to. This is the trouble with being very, very capable is people expect you to keep being capable. And the more capable you are, anyone who works in a corporate environment will know this very well. The more capable you are, the more people give you to do because like, oh, you're so capable and brilliant at doing all of that. Until your tolerance for capability really starts to shift. And I think this is where many women end up going to the doctor and going on HRT um, to avoid being labeled, as my dad once said to me, that a friend of his referred to his wife as, and I quote, a menopausal monster. So when there is a narrative like that about this midlife change that every woman goes through and there's no avoiding it, no wonder everyone's like, oh, just go and get the HRT. Geez, you're so moody. Go and calm yourself down with that. Meanwhile, if we start to dig a little bit deeper and have a look at those big emotions that come up at this period in the middle of life, yeah, they're a little bit instigated by hormones. But what those big emotions are telling you are, I've been carrying too much and I'm not going to do it anymore. And is anybody going to step up to meet me? And I think this is where the rage starts to arrive when we go through these shifts, the tolerance level drops, and nobody steps up to support and meet. I know a lot of women in the middle of their lives at this kind of 40 plus age who are very, very angry. Very, very angry about having allowed themselves to be in relationships and situations where they have just done everything and their invisible and unpaid labor has just been completely taken for granted and they don't want to do it anymore. But when you have been the person who's just taken it on and taken it on, and you have tolerated other people's offloading on you, and you have managed yourself, because I think often something that happens for women is we end up managing other people's emotions at our own expense. So if you're listening to this and this resonates, welcome. We end up kind of sitting and making ourselves uncomfortable so that other people are not uncomfortable. So maybe you have been with a partner who works an awful lot and they're tired when they come home from work and there isn't really ever a right time to talk to them about anything. So you've gone through maybe 15, 20 years of just not bringing up stuff that you need because it causes an aggravated response. So you end up silencing your own needs to make sure somebody else isn't overloaded. There's not too much put on their tired little plate. And cue perimenopause, and you're not going to do that anymore. So if you're listening and you're going, oh yes, that's me, and you're nodding along, I have a free how to stop overfunctioning masterclass, which will give you a little bit more info about this overfunctioning pattern, this pattern of keeping other people comfortable, and how to stop doing it. So you can find that in the show notes. So make sure you go and grab that. I also have a free how to set boundaries without feeling guilty PDF guide as well, which I'll drop into the show notes. So there are two free resources there that will really support you if you're finding yourself on a journey of perimenopause, hormonal imbalances, and midlife rage. But if we dig a bit deeper and you start to listen to the emotions that are coming to the surface, and you start to listen to the anger you have, the frustration you have, and the rage you have, rather than just straight up reaching for something that's going to silence them, they have valuable information for you. So things like anger are wonderful indicators of where your boundaries have been crossed, if you've managed to set some, and where your values have been stomped over by somebody, where you have perhaps felt dismissed or ignored or not respected or not valued. This is a time in your life where all of those things are going to come to the surface for you to have a look at. And I think this is a wonderful threshold at midlife because you've got a choice. Do I continue to abandon myself to keep other people comfortable? Do I continue taking it all on and struggling and being tired and feeling frustrated and resentful? Or do I decide that now is the time? I'm going to step up and I'm going to listen to what it is I want, and I am going to get my own needs met. And the way we start with that is by meeting our own needs. But sometimes we have to understand what they are. I coach women who will come to a session with me and start working with me, and they can't tell me what their needs are because they've not really allowed themselves to have any. They'll tell me they're frustrated and they're raging and they're fed up and all of those things, but they don't really know quite why. And it's one of those journeys to unpack what it is you want now going forwards and how it is you're going to make that happen, what your emotions are telling you, because your emotions are such a good indicator if they're messengers, if you can listen to them rather than be overwhelmed by them or wanting to kind of medicate them into submission. If you can start to listen to them with a bit of curiosity, they'll direct you in the path that you want to take your life down and where you want to be going. I found this period of life, I had a bit of a realization. My birthday's in January, so at the beginning of this year, and I thought, right, if I lived to be 90, which I'd be really lucky to be able to do that, I'm now 45. I've reached the halfway point in my life. So if I'm fortunate, I've got another 45 years to go. I'm going to be a lot more intentional with those 45 years next time, the next 45 years, than I have been with the first 45 years, where I didn't really know how to listen to myself. I was very busy creating a family and getting married and all of those things. I've got a daughter who's grown up and she's at university. So it's what do I want to do now with this precious bit of my life? Is what's happening now the right thing for me? What do I want to do career-wise? And I've had a bit of a career pivot in my early 40s. So it's really taking the bull by the horns and deciding, okay, now what? What am I going to do? And if I'm frustrated, how am I going to change that? If I am angry, what am I going to do? What is that anger telling me? Where is it pointing me to? What do I need to do differently? Where do I need to put a boundary down? Where do I need to speak my truth and not silence myself to keep somebody else comfortable? Where do I need to make changes? Where do I need to step up for myself? I will leave you with those thoughts, and I've been going for a walk every morning, affectionately known as the morning pound. I try and get 6,500 steps in before 8 a.m. And I like to listen to the hardest house music I can possibly find to keep me motivated and moving as quickly as possible when I'm walking, because I don't really run. And I was listening to Hardwell this morning, and I heard a song, and one of the lines in it, which I thought was just inspirational, so I'm going to, who knew Hard House could be so inspiring, is I am no longer going to accept the things I cannot change. I am going to change the things I cannot accept. And this is the invitation we all have at 40 plus, going into perimenopause, going into midlife, going into these big hormonal shifts. What are the things that you will no longer accept that you are now going to change? And if you would like some support on that journey, you can book a free discovery call with me to talk about coaching. This is my specialty of helping people navigate through change, helping people understand themselves better, and helping women really reconnect with their inner authority so they can live life on their own terms, not on everybody else's. So you can catch that in the show notes, and also make sure you check out the Overfunctioning Masterclass and the boundary setting PDF. Rather a lot of options there for you, but there's lots of things you can check out. And if you've enjoyed the podcast, if you're a new subscriber, I would love it if you would leave me a 5-star rating and review. And of course, share this with somebody who will also benefit from my words of wisdom. All right, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now.